I think we are ready to begin.
All right, welcome everybody. This is so wonderful to have you on board, and later on, those of you who view the recording. I am Marianne Hansen, Research Services Librarian at Montana State University in Bozeman. I also coordinate the MSU Library's annual Tribal College Librarians Professional Development Institute, sponsored by my library. I'm the host of today's session of the PNC MLA Health Equity and Diversity Speaker Series. With me are Maddie Romancic and Carolyn Martin from NNLM Region 5 and Candace Branham from Gonzaga University to help assist me in this session. This series is a collaboration between the network of the National Library of Medicine Region 5 and the Pacific Northwest chapter of the Medical Library Association. And I'm currently chair of the diversity committee. So if you have any interest in joining, we'd love to have you. So our guest speaker, Dr. Vernon Grant, will be focusing on his sleep research with Blackfeet tribal members in Montana. But before I introduce him, let me go over a few details about this session on developing, implementing, and evaluating a mixed methods community-based participatory research sleep intervention in families with K to first grade children living on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation in Montana. And so just a few technical items to cover. Closed caption has been enabled and is available by selecting closed caption at the bottom menu. Depending on the size of your screen, you may need to click on the three dots where it says more and then select closed captions. All attendees have been muted, but we welcome your questions and comments in the chat. And please be sure to select everyone from the drop-down menu when posting your questions and comments in chat so everyone can see them. And we are recording this session and we'll post it on NNLM's YouTube channel in a couple of weeks or so. And as a reminder, by registering for this webinar, all attendees have agreed to abide by the NNLM Code of Conduct. It's a reminder that we're all here together professionally and we want to be inclusive and respectful. So your cooperation is appreciated. The Code of Conduct is also available on our website and the link is in the chat. This class is eligible for one Medical Library Association continuing education credit, which you'll be able to claim through the evaluation link that will have the MLACE code. Which will be shared at the end of the session. And speaking of that evaluation, your feedback matters to us and helps improve future training. So please do take a moment to complete it, whether you want the CE credit or not. And oops, I think I just went to the wrong. Sorry. So I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Vernon Grant. He is here on my campus. He's in our Center for American Indian Rural Health Equity at MSU. And you'll see that he has his PhD in exercise science and community health from the University of Montana, our friendly cross-state rival, and he is currently an assistant research professor here. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides and let Dr. Grant share his slides and take it away. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I just want to thank the folks here for inviting me here to speak and talk a little bit about the research that I've been doing. You know, as we get going here, I am doing research in my home community in Browning, Montana, on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, where I was born and raised. I'm Skapi Pikani. I'm Blackfeet, enrolled Blackfeet. And this work is just an ongoing project that we've been doing here for about the past, let's see, 7 years. And it started with assessing middle school kids actually with accelerometry. We were measuring their physical activity and sleep and different health behaviors. And what we found is they just weren't getting enough sleep each night. Kids just don't sleep these days. You know, a lot of them were up at night playing video games, things like that. And so we brought this data back to the council, asked them, you know, what would you like us to focus on? And, you know, I presented the data that I found as far as just the sleep aspect of it. And they said, we should do something on sleep. We should focus on that. So that's kind of how this came about. And then, working with some of my mentors, they highly recommended that we start at the little people, like super young, because that's where behaviors start to develop. So that's kind of how everything started with this. Um, I am this project was funded by the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at NIH. I'm in year 4 of a KO1, entering year 5 here actually next month. So let's see here if I can get this to work. Okay. So I want to introduce my research team. This isn't the just everybody. We've had past research team members, but my research coordinator, Megan, my Blackfeet language instructor or advisor, I guess you could say, Jesse. Mary Ellen, she's actually one of our kind of like our research coordinator assistant, but also an elder in the community. And then I hired a BCC student. So, one of the things that I feel like sets us apart is we're an all Blackfeet research team. We're coming into the community, we're doing work, we're not outsiders. I'll share a little bit about that, like what some of the people said about that. But we're able to get things done quickly and efficiently just because of that aspect. So, and then also, I have a community advisory board, a couple of councilmen on there, Everett and Pat Armstrong, Zeba, Natalie. So a lot of these people are, really tied in culturally. Um, Actually, most of them are. Um, Most of them have an education, and they're really working closely with people in the community. The funny thing is I haven't been able to have very many community advisory board meetings. I need to get these folks together and start discussing some of the results and where to go from here. But these guys will play an integral part of this work. So as you know, every study needs IRB approval. We went through the Blackfeet Nation IRB. So this work is mixed methods. So it's got 2 phases, a qualitative phase and then a quantitative, and I'll discuss both here briefly. So as far as the qualitative phase, the phase 1, we did some focus groups with families, and these were done in the winter of 2021 and the spring of 2022. We did 7 focus groups with Blackfeet families. And we focus on K through 1st grade kids, but you'll see it's like in some areas it says K through 3rd. The reason being is because they were in 1st grade in 2021, but when we actually implemented the intervention, they were in the 3rd grade. So we kind of expanded that. We couldn't exclude them, obviously. So we had 11 families during this aspect of it. Each group ranged from about a half hour to an hour. And then we had a moderator's guide, and this is just kind of it's a little wordy, but it shows some of the questions we asked them. How important do you think sleep is to your overall health? Asking them about bedtime, asking them about weekday and weekend bedtime and wake time, things like that. Some of the stuff, it can kind of get a little intimate because you're asking people about their family composition, meaning how many kids are in a room together, things like that. Do your kids share beds? Do you guys have a sleep routine? What do you guys do before sleep? That sort of thing. And like I said, none of us are outsiders. And some of the people that we did focus groups with, they said, if it weren't for you guys, if it wasn't you guys doing this study, we wouldn't have shared some of the information we shared. So that's one aspect of this work that I think is novel, is that we're not, people trying to gain trust and entry into the community. We're all community members, and we all are, all the families know us. I always say, when people identify as from a certain tribe or as Indian, people know we can track each other down real easily and quickly by our families. So we also interviewed elders from the Blackfoot Confederacy, and I don't want to get too much into our confederacy and how that operates, but we have 3 bands of the confederacy up north in Canada: Blood, Piikani, and Siksika. And we were able to get elders, I think from every band except Siksika, I think. But we did 6 with interviews with elders. Some of them were quite lengthy, and we just asked open-ended questions on traditional thoughts on sleep. And some of these are just they're just full of wisdom. They're just amazing, some of these interviews. And every time I listen to them, I pick up something different. Some of our elders are telling stories about real old things specific to our people, stories and things about our culture and our traditions that are pretty neat, that I've never heard before, that I really am grateful I was able to participate in this and do this with some of our elders. So all the audio recordings were transcribed from my previous research coordinator, Natalie. And then I did the analysis, so theme identification. And then, we took sections of our interviews, and we kind of broke them up a little bit on sleep, traditional thoughts, old stories, things like that, things that our families could share with their kids at nighttime, but that weren't too long, because if we broke these clips up too long, then people wouldn't listen to them. And all this data will be stored in the Blackfeet Community College archives. So the results of this, qualitative assessment, we created a theme list. And these were importance of sleep, family composition, bedtime routines, sleep behaviors, and sleep strategies. So I'll just kind of briefly go into a little bit about some of this data and what people were saying. So in terms of importance of sleep, sleep is important to overall health. Everybody kind of, they all said how important that was. They all, agreed that sleep is pretty important, and how that impacts different aspects of our life, like mental health, mood, focus, awareness. So people kind of overall, even if they're not getting enough sleep, they're aware of how important it is. And so that's a good thing, as long as people have that awareness. As far as bedtime routine, people prayed at night. They used blackout shades. Some took a shower, read stories, that sort of thing. Um, the bedtime home environment, that was something also we identified. Some were calm, some was chaotic, some busy, some chill. And I think everybody can kind of relate to that, if you have kids anyway, especially little kids. Screen time, that's a big one, especially before bedtime. There's so many different recommendations out there on that. I can go on and on and on about screen time before bedtime. That's a huge thing, and something that I think is really necessary in order to eliminate in order to get adequate sleep each night. But obviously that comes on TV, laptop. I think the predominant one is phone. So sleep behaviors. We asked them, or one of the themes that were identified was the most comfortable place to sleep was with parents. And again, these are little people. So, a lot of the little ones are jumping in bed with their parents, on the floor with siblings, on the couch. Sleep problems. So, a lot of people have those, hard time going to sleep. Some of the kids were just hyper. That could be attributed to, potentially sugar and in eating, that sort of thing. That's something we didn't ask or assess, which should be in the future. Do you eat before bedtime? Because that definitely plays a role on spiking our blood sugar and digestion and all that kind of stuff. And the other one was nightmares. And then, we asked about weekday to weekend bedtime and wake time. And, that varies with everybody, obviously. And then sleep disruptions. So in Browning, I'm not sure if anybody out there in cyber world has been to Browning or hung out there, but dogs bark at night. Some people just getting hot, and then siblings waking each other up. So we also asked, in our focus groups, what were some strategies we could do to get people to sleep more each night. And some of the intervention components they identified was prayer, stories, language, lullabies, stories with language, books, a sleep app. You know, there's a lot of different apps out there right now that people can utilize to get better sleep each night, especially with white noise, that sort of thing. And then setting a consistent sleep schedule. I think across the board, you know, that's one of the most important things that one can do to get adequate sleep each night is just setting a consistent sleep schedule. So, well, you know, again, you know, this was a mixed methods approach. So just to kind of recap, so everybody's, you know, uh, fully understanding what we're doing here. So we recruited families, we did focus groups with families, and we did interviews with our Blackfoot elders. We analyzed that data and we created a sleep intervention based upon that data, based upon what the people said, you know, and we did our best to really ground the intervention components in the community's voice, really listening to what people said during the focus groups, listening to what our elders said, and did our best to really kind of incorporate all those aspects into an intervention that we could then give back to our families, back to the community to potentially, you know, help them to achieve more nightly sleep. So the name of our study, Pikeni Pokan, which means Blackfoot Dreams, Blackfeet Dreams. And originally it was set out to be a 9-week intervention. Just as you get going, anybody who's done research knows, you know, we were coming up on Christmas, we were dealing with the holidays, that sort of thing. We just did this last fall, and it ended up being 7 weeks. And just as I was saying, you know, we incorporated that focus group and interviewed data. And you know, it may sound counterintuitive because we deliver the intervention through text and Facebook. And you know, again, it's like, well, I thought you're trying to cut down on screen time before bedtime, but one of the strategies was, you know, to turn off screens an hour and a half before bedtime. So, you know, we were hoping that people would utilize this information, the text messages and the Facebook content, you know, at least a couple hours prior to bedtime. But the reason we did text and Facebook is because we asked the families, what is the best way that we could contact you, that we could deliver information to you? And across the board, they said text and Facebook. So that's what we ran with. Families received 4 Blackfeet storybooks, and I'll talk a little bit about those here. And we recruited 30 families with, again, K through 3rd grade. There's that 3rd grade because it's not 1st grade no more. These kids were older, and the original kids and families that were in the study in 2021, we reached back out to them, and every one of them that wanted to be a part of it in 2023 were able to. So that's why it's K through 3rd grade. And again, we implemented in fall 2023. So here's kind of a little timeline of how things went. So in the summer of 2023, we went out, we recruited. We again, we went to our original list. We asked our original families, would you guys be willing to, you know, participate in a sleep intervention? Are you interested? Well, I can't off the top of my head quote how many our families did, but a good proportion of them participated, and we're still interested. The rest we just recruited in the community, a lot of word of mouth, Facebook recruitment, that sort of thing. And again, because our family, our research team is all Blackfeet, you know, they have family members, friends there. It was pretty easy to recruit 30 families. 7-week intervention, fall. So in the fall of 2023, our Facebook component, so it was really just focused on our elder clips. And then we also incorporated some Blackfeet songs. We had some really old songs sung by some of our elders. I don't know when. If I had to guess, it'd be in the 70s. Pretty neat songs, really old songs that people could listen to and learn. They were more so lullabies, is what they were. And we shared this content on Facebook. And the reason being is because, you know, obviously you can upload video clips onto Facebook. and we could upload the songs on there. And, we wanted to bring in as much of our culture and our tradition and our ways as possible, because that's what's going to connect to people is them having something that is specific to them, who they are in their DNA. And was one of the main things we wanted to really bring back to our families. And that's what they said in the focus groups as well. Um, our texts. So we sent out texts every morning, and every morning we had something in our language, in the Blackfeet language. There were various things that we incorporated into that, and I'll elaborate on that just a bit here. And then at nighttime, we sent them tips on sleep strategies, and there were just several different aspects of getting nightly sleep that we sent to them, like keeping your bedroom cool, turning off screens, keeping your bedroom dark, that sort of thing. So there were a lot of tips we sent to them. And then we also encouraged bedtime stories. So the stories like that were that the elders talked about, but also the books. So we again, we give them 4 Blackfeet books from the Blackfeet Heritage Collection. These are just, and a lot of families, they're connected to the people who are featured in these books or who wrote them, and old stories from different families, and we're all connected somehow, some way to those people. And so that was, I think, a neat aspect of it too for our families. And again, here's an example of our text messages. So in the morning time, we would send out the specific word that we were sending to them, but we also had a YouTube link that they could click on, and when they clicked on it, our speaker was saying the word, teaching them how to say it, and so they not only could read it, but they could hear it and really get a grasp upon our language. And then at nighttime, again, this is an example of our strategies, getting an hour and a half of sleep, getting an hour and a half more of sleep each night is really important. And that was really the focus, is really trying to get at least an hour and a half of sleep each night more than they were getting prior to the intervention. And then we did do some with each of our books, more or less kind of following along. We recommended each page, the page number and what we were reading, and just following along as a recommendation. But a lot of the family said, man, we just read the books. We loved them so much. As soon as we got them, we read them. And so that was pretty cool to hear. And then, our Facebook, we again, we just did clips. We featured some of our elders here. This is actually my relative Marvin, and these were really neat, I think, and this was a novel aspect of our study, and it was, I think, really beneficial for a lot of families. So as far as data collection go, we did pre-intervention, post-intervention, and then we're going to do a 3-month follow-up. So we're at that post-intervention time point, and at each time point, the families got $100 for their participation, and we assessed a lot of different variables. So we've assessed sleep, physical activity, stress and mental health, diet, nutrition, screen time, BMI, body mass index, and then demographics. So the families had a lot of data to complete. And then when after the intervention concluded, we asked just randomly, we randomly selected. We originally were going to recruit 10 families, but we could only recruit 9 to just do some exit interviews and just visit with us about what they thought about the study. So, the feasibility, things that we did that were good, things we could improve, Blackfoot words learned. That was really important for us too, and the intervention's impact on their sleep. And we right now and then when they did these exit interviews, everybody got $100 for their participation. And right now where we're at is we have all this data. So we have the all the data that I highlighted above. So all the sleep, physical activity, stress, mental health, nutrition. We have all that data. We're working on cleaning it, and that's being sent off to our statistician. I was hoping to have that, at least some preliminary data that I could present today, but unfortunately I don't. And then we also have these exit interviews with what families, as far as giving us feedback on the intervention, what they thought, you know, was good, bad, and ugly, all that stuff. And we're hoping to get that transcribed and analyzed here in the next couple of months. From there, you know, we're going to take this data and bring it back to the community, obviously. We're going to present it to the tribal council. We'll probably end up presenting it at the Blackfoot Research Conference in June, if they have it this year. If not, we'll present it at different venues, probably through Blackfeet Community College. And then it will be, we'll prepare some manuscripts. We'll do some presentations, either regional, national, or potentially global. Once we have the data to really present. And right now, what I'm working on from this data is using it as preliminary data in an R01. So I'm looking for the next steps. The next steps are really getting deeper into the sleep component, more so assessing sleep apnea in the community. A lot of our elders are being sent across the mountains. I'm not sure if people know geographically where Browning is, but the nearest sleep clinic, from my understanding, and there may be one in Great Falls, but the nearest one that many of our elders and our people are being sent to is in Kalispell. So they have to go through the mountains, especially in a winter time for our elders and older people. That's really difficult. You know, it gets icy. It gets really, it gets pretty bad going through there. And then they got to go over there and they got to sleep in their lab and do a polysomnography test. So I'm looking to circumvent that process and hopefully get everything done right there at home in the comfort of their home. But rather than go too much into detail on that, that's kind of the next steps is we're looking to really get more focused on assessing sleep apnea in the community. And then, you know, I just want to acknowledge everybody who makes this possible. I mean, there's just always so many people. I mean, you know me, I'm the one speaking, but it's really not, that's not me. There's so many people that made this study a success. All my partners, you know, the backing of our council, and then just all the people who play their part and really help me to get where they're at. And then obviously the funding. I mean, the funding, this type of work wouldn't be possible without funding. And I'm always super grateful for you know, getting funding and being able to hire people and get incentives into the community and just really trying to pour everything I can back into the community. That's really important. So with that, I didn't take up too much time today. We can open her up for questions, and I will stop sharing my screen if that's okay, guys.
Okay, so we actually do have a question in the chat. This is from George. It says, Dr. Grant, thanks for your presentation. What are your thoughts about whether a similar intervention is replicable in other tribes, or do you think this is specific to Blackfeet only?
Not at all. It's not specific to Blackfeet. I mean, you could do this with any tribe. What would be what wouldn't be replicable is obviously our language, our stories, our elders, that sort of thing. But you could go into any tribe and work with their people and ask their families, you know. An example is, you know, you may ask them, well, what's the best way to get information to you? And they could say, well, we want to meet every week at this time versus, oh, text us and Facebook, you know. And then if you interview their elders, I mean, their elders may have a completely different, I mean, they will, obviously, they're going to have completely different stories, origin stories. They're going to have completely different perspectives on things. And, but the cool thing is you could take that specific to that tribe and just tailor it and incorporate it specific to those people. And, and again, it's research. So there's no telling how or what works. I don't even know what we found yet. I mean, who knows what the results and the data say, but I mean, I would think a lot of tribes and a lot of people, if you have something that's specific to them with their language, with their stories, their culture, their elders, people are gonna tap into that. People are gonna grasp that. And I know a lot of ours did, especially with the books. That was a lot of the feedback that I got was with the books. They really liked the books and the Blackfoot language sent to them every morning. So, that's kind of a long-winded response, but it's just tailoring things specific to that tribe, but also incorporating the community's voice, really listening to what community members have to say and what they think.
Great. So we do have a couple other questions come in from Carol. This says, congratulations on your work. Would you say this is a purposive sampling of your community? Does the data represent the population of the Blackfeet population?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it represents the population, just because we recruited 30 families. I mean, there's a lot more families out there. And as far as focus groups are concerned, I think we got 11. I can't remember off the top of my head, but again, there's a lot more families out there. I don't think with qualitative work, it's so much, you're representative of the population as far as repetition or the term is escaping me with qualitative data, as far as data saturation. That's the term. We did reach data saturation in a lot of across focus groups. So in terms of what people were saying, we heard some of the same things repeated over and over and over. But there, and that's a good question, and it really wasn't meant to be representative of the population. It wasn't an experimental design or a randomized controlled trial where we had a control group and experimental group and we're randomizing effects and things of that. It was more so just to see how it worked. And we could go on from here and do an RCT, a randomized controlled trial, and really see how that works. But uh, as far as to answer the question, no, I don't think it was a representative of the population.
Thanks. So this is another interesting one from Wendy. It says, thank you, Dr. Grant. Do you see applications for this approach in non-native communities, using regional stories and vocabulary specific to that climate or terrain, using other stories or languages in immigrant and first-gen populations?
I mean, that's a good question, and my response would be I don't know, because I've never worked with populations outside of Indian people and in tribal communities. I've worked a little bit in an urban population, urban American Indians, and I mean, although it's kind of intertribal and you got a lot of different tribes in one location, you still kind of get common themes and things pulled out of that. But working with non-Indian populations, I don't know. And I'm sure you're gonna get, things that are where you can, as I said, reach data saturation, things that people kind of common themes that people identify. But, as far as like stories and vocabulary, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you are working with immigrants and people that are from a different culture, they have the same language, I'm sure you could do the same thing and just really incorporate things specific to them.
So Laura asked, is there anything that surprised you in the data that you gathered or the stories that you heard? And if so, what was the most surprising thing that you've seen so far?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say surprised, you know. I think with our elders, you know, and talking with our elders and some of the things they shared, that really and I'm not even sure if I could speak to some of that. I don't know if I'm even supposed to, you know, but I'll share one thing that was really neat to me because it's a family lineage, you know. It's this was something my family participated in, and, you know, and a lot of people may not believe in this or understand it, but you know, our people are very spiritual. They're very in tune to what they can't see. I was always told things by my grandparents, you know, that there's a world we can't see. There's things out there that we can't see. And you know, every morning he would, one of my relatives, I'm not going to identify any names, but you know, he would go out on his porch down where he lived way outside of Browning, and every morning he would sing a song, and he would it was the same song every morning he would sing. And and my cousin went out there one morning and he asked his grandpa, "Why do you sing this song every morning?" And he said, "Because it's he I'm not sure if I'm terming this correctly, but it was, you know, uh, for because he sung the song because every morning when the sun came up, that's when the spirits went back up into the hills, into the mountains, and they liked that song. So he would sing them home every morning." And you know, and stories like that, things like that that we don't do no more, that those old people, my grandparents and their parents, they used to do, and they always they sung, and they knew they were in tune to that world. And so, you know, those are some of the things that came out in those interviews that were just really amazing, and you know, really touched my heart, you know. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I have one other question in here that is about alternative medicine use. So, did you find that there was any use of alternative medicine to help remedy sleeping habits?
No, we didn't get into that too much. I mean, because then you start crossing, you know, some lines there with addiction and you know, prescription use. I mean, obviously, some of the more popular ones is melatonin, but you know, there's a lot of side effects to that, especially in the morning when you wake up and you're groggy. Um, just on that note, you know, if you have to use prescription, something's you're not doing something right. And that was the whole point to turning off the screens. I think for the majority of the population today, the reason why so many people have to take medication or even alternative medicine, even if it's holistic or all natural, and some of that stuff is great. You know, I have read and looked into a lot of it. In fact, I've considered some of using some of that, but again, you start crossing the lines with addiction on that. But you know, for the majority of the population, the reason why they have to go that route is because of our screens, and our screens have a blue light in them, no matter what kind of screen they are, that mimic the sun, and so it's telling our bodies the sun is still out, it's still time to be awake, and so we don't naturally produce melatonin, which our bodies do, you know, versus if we were to turn off all of our screens and not have a blue light on our skin, on our face, we would naturally get sleepy and we would just naturally go to sleep each night.
So as Maddie noted, we are kind of out of the older questions in the chat. So feel free to unmute if you have something that you'd like to ask directly.
The way we have the room set up, if you'd like to unmute, please just request it and I will be happy to unmute you. Vernon, I have a question about the book that you gave to participants. Did you say it was specifically written for the study, or was it something that you found and gave? I guess I just would like to know more about the book itself.
Yeah, so there's a whole collection called the Blackfeet Heritage Collection, and there are several books. And it wasn't just one; it was actually four that we picked for this study. But I mean, I don't even know how many books are in that collection, but they just touch on all different aspects of stories and things from families. But no, it wasn't written specifically for the study. The purpose of the books were to give to families so they could read them at bedtime as bedtime stories. And not only that, but then the books were specific to, obviously our culture, our ways, and things that they could educate their families on, because a lot of the families that participated, they had a connection to the authors of those books. And even if it wasn't the authors, there's stories of families and different people within those books that they can identify and relate to.
Thank you. I just thought it was a wonderful offering. So thank you. Okay, I think we have a question from someone who'd like to unmute themselves. So I'm going to do that now. Oops. There we go.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Grant. My name is Trina Filan, and I work at the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services in Helena. And I am wondering, I'm an evaluator, and I work with chronic disease prevention. We're trying to do a better job of working with communities in a non-top-down way. And I'm very interested in community participatory evaluation and the techniques that you've been discussing. But I also know that we would probably be viewed with a lot of skepticism if we approached communities, tribal or otherwise, with an idea like this. So do you have any thoughts about how an organization that might not have the greatest amount of trust from communities can be more humble and develop the trust to be able to do this kind of work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe, we can discuss this further outside of this. That would be something that I would be definitely interested in. But one thing that comes to mind immediately is tribes are sovereign nations. So there's not a one size fits all approach. Every tribe's going to be different in how they operate and do things. Some are going to be directly through the tribal council. And again, I can't speak to every tribe. But a lot of them are some are council, some are going to be even through the college, the tribal college. Some are going to be through a different department, a health department. As far as approaching them in a non-top-down approach, my recommendation is always, if you don't know anybody in the community, go to the council. Go to the council and tell them in the most sincere and humble way that you can, that what you're trying to accomplish. This is what we would love to do. We want to work with you, not on you, so to speak. There's a huge difference, because we've had research done on us over and over and over versus with us. And I know it's a little different evaluation, and I'm actually interested in evaluation as well, and I have some experience in there. But as far as research goes, CBPR and other entities coming onto the reservation, I can tell you right now there's a huge push right now and a huge movement, I guess you can say, not only between tribes but within, of individuals coming in and wanting to do this or that, and a lot of tribes are really starting to I guess crack down on it. I don't know how to better say that, but to really be more selective and to be more careful in how they are approached and who they're letting onto the tribe. And again, you know, this ain't across the board, and I'm not saying it's a contentious type of ordeal. I'm just saying, you know, as far as how to do it in a good way is just working with the people, working with the tribe, getting to know people. I mean, just going up and visiting. Sometimes that's all it takes is just visiting people and getting to know them. You know, I've done that myself. I've worked in tribes that ain't my own. I'm working in with Blackfeet right now, which is where I'm from and who I am. But that hasn't always been the case. You know, I've had to get in my car and drive and go meet people and talk to people and text people and Zoom people and just get to know folks and talk to them and get to know them. I mean, that's just so important, is because too often it's just, you know, that helicopter approach where we're the, you know, Department of Health and Human Services, we're going to come in and do this and then we're going to be gone. And, you know, that's kind of how things have went in the past, where, you know, things are different today. So, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of chasing my tail with that, but we can talk more if you'd like, Trina, you know, outside of this.
I would really love that. And I appreciate your what you said. It makes very good sense. And I will reach out to you if you are okay with that.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? We'll give you a little longer. I'm going to go ahead and put the evaluation link into the chat box for you to get your Medical Library Association CE credit. There is an evaluation that we ask you to take, and whether you want that CE or not. And if you do want the CE, there is a question that asks you if you want it. And when you say yes, then please closely follow the directions, and the code will appear as well for you to use.
Yes, thank you, Carolyn. Even if you are not a member of the Medical Library Association, you can still receive the certificate and get credit by completing that survey and answering that you would like MLA-CE, and more information will be provided to you. And you can email nnlm@uw.edu if you have questions. I'm just going on to the next slide while people are formulating perhaps more questions. We don't have another program scheduled yet. If you have ideas, please feel free to send them on to me or any member of the diversity committee. I am mhanson@montana.edu. I'll type that in the, but we've been very lucky to get great speakers like Vernon and others. It may be a couple of weeks before this recording is available, and we can't thank you enough again, Vernon, for Dr. Grant, for joining us today and sharing your wonderful work. And thank to all of you for taking the time out of your busy day. And any final questions? Oops, sorry.
It looks like there was one final question that popped up from George to Dr. Grant. The question is, it sounds like you use some non-Indigenous sources of information in addition to Indigenous ones. How did you go about selecting those?
Oh, yeah, that was from the literature. You know, obviously, as an academic, where it's not only I get to, I'm so thankful now, you know, being beyond the PhD. I can create my own work and I can incorporate who I am into the work I'm doing. But, you know, we're also guided by the literature, and all the sleep strategies that were incorporated into the text came from the literature. So they were sleep strategies and things that were evidence-based and peer-reviewed scientific journals.
Any other questions, anyone? Yeah, just lots of thank yous and kudos for such an informative presentation in the chat.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. This appreciate the time and for everybody's time today.
Well, being that, okay, yeah, Carolyn just posted the link to where the recording will be available in a few weeks after editing and whatnot, if need be. So everyone have a great day. Dr. Vernon, keep up your great work. I mean, Dr. Grant, sorry. All right, thanks everyone for joining. I guess we will end. Take care.
Yeah.